When you eat, there are likely carbohydrates in your food. About 45 to 65% of your daily diet should be carb. Recall that they are a fast source of energy. To review, we can find carbs in the form of polysaccharides or mini sugar units, which includes starch such as tortilla, bread, and rice, and also includes cellulose such as in lettuce and cilantro. We see carbs in the form of disaccharide or two sugar units, such as sucrose, which is your white table sugar, found in foods like bread and mini baked products. Or this would also include lactose, which would be the sugar in milk. We also see carbs in the form of monosaccharides, which are single sugar units, such as fructose found in fruit like tomatoes or banana. So, where do these carbs go? First of all, these carbs you eat are broken down into the single sugar unit glucose by your digestive system. Now, what do we do with glucose? Carbs, specifically glucose, can enter cell respiration. As we stated before, carbs are fast, easy to use source of energy. That is because glucose from the food you eat, combined with oxygen from the air you breathe, can enter your cells and go through cell respiration. Cell respiration starts with glycolysis, where we break down glucose, and then continues to the citric acid cycle and electron transport chain. This will give you ATP, among many other products. ATP is a quick source of energy that your cells can use immediately. Now, not all the carbs you eat and glucose you intake is used for cell respiration, and your cells can't store up single glucose molecules. So, if you overeat your carbs, we have to find a way to store the extra glucose. One way we can store excess glucose is in the form of glycogen. Recall that glycogen is also a carbohydrate, specifically a polysaccharide, similar to starch and cellulose. Except glycogen you find stored up in skeletal muscle. It is a great form of stored energy for your muscles so that later when you need to, for example, run, you have a good source of energy already in the muscles to use. Another place that glycogen is stored is in the liver. This is a great location to store carbs because the liver filters through all your blood. So if it detects that you have excess glucose in the blood, it can store it. So here is how we take the excess glucose from the food you eat that is now circulating in your blood and store it as glycogen in your skeletal muscles or liver. The liver first detects the excess glucose in your blood. It converts the glucose into a different form called glucose 6-phosphate. Then, through a process of glycogenesis, it is converted to glycogen, which, as you can see here, is a polysaccharide, a long chain of monosaccharides. Again, glycogen is found in the skeletal muscle and liver. Now, you are going to see a lot of these terms that look very similar, and it can be very confusing. But if we break down the term and understand what the root means, it becomes easier. For example, let's break down glycogenesis. Genesis means to create or make. Think of the book of Genesis in the Bible, which is the beginning or the creation. So when you see the root Genesis, think to make. Now in front, we have glycogen. So glycogenesis is the process of creating glycogen. Since we are building or adding up smaller glucose molecule into a bigger glycogen molecule, this reaction is anabolic and endergonic. It takes some energy to store up glycogen. Now, let's say you go for a run and now your muscles need to use that glycogen as energy. It needs to break it down. So then we will go through the process of glycogenolysis, which is the reverse of what we just did. it breaks glycogen back down into glucose 6-phosphate, and that can be directly used in glycolysis to then go into the citric acid cycle to make ATP in muscle cells, so muscles have energy to contract. Let's break down the term glycogenesis. When you see the root lysis, that means to break. So here we are breaking, and you see the word glycogen in front. So that means we are breaking glycogen down. We go through this process when we are breaking down our glycogen energy storage to use. Let's say you haven't eaten in a while and your blood glucose is low. You need some energy. Remember that we have stored glycogen in the liver. We can access the glycogen in the liver and break it down through glycogenolysis back into glucose. This glucose can then circulate in the blood, and since your blood goes everywhere in the body, this glucose can be used in any cell as needed to go through cell respiration to make ATP energy. We just discussed two main options of what to do with the carbs that we eat. Our first priority is to use the carbs as glucose for quick energy in the form of ATP through cell respiration in all the cells of our body. When the carbs are in excess, our second option is that the glucose can be stored as glycogen through glycogenesis, and then later used through glycogenolysis. Another way we can store excess glucose is as fat, which will be discussed in a different video. Now, you try to explain where carbs go with this diagram in your own words. To summarize carb metabolism one more time, first, glucose is converted into energy, ATP, by glycolysis in cell respiration. When in excess, glucose can be stored as glycogen for energy storage in muscle and the liver, which can then be accessed later when needed for energy.